first in February.
Around 45 minutes away or less from these storms getting into campus.
And again in April.
We have a tornado warning for Cleveland County.
Tornado outbreaks slam the Sooner State.
This is devastation. I've never seen anything like this.
Testing faith.
I know what saved us, it was the Lord. I mean, there's no other explanation. I have absolutely no other explanation. I thought that we were going to die.
Over fear.
And then when our ears started popping, it was like instant fear, and like you heard people crying, and I was shaking and holding on to my friend.
Tonight, as storm season peaks, your campus weather authority breaks down how to stay safe.
Parents started calling me because they're from Norman, so they're like, hey, you need to go to a shelter. So I'm like,
when every second matters.
Given much warning, it just like, she came running out of bed and said, Gigi, the alarm had just went off, and as soon as she came in, it just like, the window busted.
This is OU Nightly, tracking the storm.
Good evening. I'm OU Nightly meteorologist Catherine Liberta.
And I'm meteorologist Colton Williams. We are proud to be the senior leaders of the largest collegiate broadcast team of meteorologists in the nation. And this year, OU's College of Journalism and School of Meteorology partnered for a first twice as tornadoes approach campus. We launched live continuing coverage warning the Norman area of the storms.
We were on air for more than 3 hours on both February 26th and again on April 19th, broadcasting tornado warnings and reporting on the damage the storm left behind.
So far this year, Oklahoma has seen 37 tornadoes. 2 of those rated EF2 with winds up to 135 miles an hour, 7 rated EF3 where wind can reach 165 miles an hour. 17 EF1s up to 110 miles per hour, and 8 EF0s, which may sound weak, but means winds are at least 65 miles an hour.
The storms injured 15 Oklahomans and sadly claimed 3 lives.
OU meteorologist Coy Taylor takes a look at how our team of meteorologists and reporters tracked the storms.
Plenty of people who, are living off campus. This storm is headed to you.
An OU Nightly first, as severe storms wreaked havoc in central Oklahoma.
We've got all kinds of information flooding into our newsroom about damage across Norman.
A viewer watching OU Nightly says he took cover moments before the tornado hit his home.
When you get out, you don't realize from the storm shelter, you don't know, do you have a place to stay that night?
Nightly reporters were some of the first on scene, showing our meteorologists and viewers the damage.
Right here at the on-cue, the roof is missing a little bit.
Fast forward 51 days.
There goes our phone. So okay.
We went live again as storms bubbled up in the late afternoon.
Of anybody north of Main Street needs to be in their shelter right now.
We brought viewers a live look at a funnel cloud from a campus parking garage.
Condensation dropping down once again.
Our meteorologists turned their attention to a storm farther south as it took aim at Cole.
This is going to move right through the community of Cole.
The storm devastated the small town and changed lives forever.
You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do.
Yeah, you're just lost.
Well, for this year already, we've already seen a record-breaking year in terms of tornado activity in the months of January and in February, where in January we averaged less than 1 tornado per month, and we saw 5 here in January, and in February, again, a record breaker on the year. April, take note, already above the average of 11.5. We've seen 18 tornadoes in April, and we are just now hitting our peak in terms of tornado activity. In the last 10 years, we've had a good combination of up years and down years. If you look back to a very calm year, 2014, 16 tornadoes. By the time we got to 2019, that again, a record-breaking year with 149 tornadoes. Last year was right at average at 58. So last year, in fact, the last 3 years, our climate pattern has looked like this. We've been in a La Nina 3 years in a row. That has led to warmer than normal and in a lot of cases drier than normal conditions. That's why we've been in such dangerous drought, and that's why our severe weather activity has been at or below average. Now, as we head into the next couple of months, now we've transitioned to what we call a neutral pattern. You notice we get this moisture feed from the subtropical jet here. That's going to help ignite severe weather as we head into the next couple of months. We will be warmer than normal coming up for this summer. That typically leads to wetter than normal for the deep south. And then as we get into this fall, then we're headed into El Nino. Then we'll be cooler than normal. That moisture feed will drop off to the south. That's where we will get wetter than normal here into this fall. And that's what will help limit our severe weather activity. Catherine?
Thanks, Colton. The University of Oklahoma has 17 places on campus where students and faculty and staff can seek shelter during a storm. 4 of those shelters are designated specifically for students living in the dorms. During the April 19th tornado outbreak, OU Nightly's Dana Searles got a look at how and where students seek shelter.
Thunder strikes, sirens sound, and roads flood. University of Oklahoma students take shelter as the campus experiences a second tornado warning this semester.
Well, I'm from Oklahoma, so when I got the first alert, I kind of wasn't worried about it. But then recently, after getting the second tornado alert, that's when I started to come down to the storm shelter.
It's definitely the residents' choice if they want to stay or leave, so we can't necessarily force them to stay here, but we just tell them to stay alert and stay aware.
The couch storm shelters filling up as the alerts and warnings on campus continue to be sent out.
Definitely last time it was a lot more alarming, so there was a lot more of an influx of people. This time it's kind of just back and forth.
I mean, yeah, I was kind of glancing at the weather today, saying there was going to be a watch, and I'm like, oh, okay, nothing new during tornado season.
And with this being the second severe weather experience for students this semester, some are having different reactions.
It just kind of gets you in the tornado feeling. The first one just kind of tells you that it's tornado season starting. So kind of used to it now, and we're only mid-April, so it's just getting started.
Dana Searles, OU Nightly.
The OU campus safety lists every storm shelter and locations where those living in Greek houses can go during a tornado on its website, ou.edu/campus safety. OU Nightly also shares this information on our social media every campus alert day.
Coming up on OU Nightly Tracking the Storm, students share how unsafe they feel living off campus during a tornado warning.
We'll tell you what would make them feel safer and why it isn't already a reality. Plus, the science behind the weather spotting and the role it plays in preparing for the next storm.
That's when OU Nightly Tracking the Storm continues.
Welcome back to OU Nightly Tracking the Storm. 2023 is already a record-breaking year for tornadoes in our state. And this semester alone, dozens of students lost their homes. OU Nightly's Dakota McDowell-Wapkichi went with one of the students as he returned to his townhouse after the February 26th tornado outbreak.
For Nate Nicholson, this past week is something he'll never forget.
Yeah, our fence and everything was gone. All of those ones that are boarded up, those are the ones that the doors flew off of.
This college student ended up living out of a hotel.
It's $800 for the whole thing. So thankfully we could afford that because I can't imagine if we couldn't.
He says his first glance at the damage left him almost speechless.
It was pretty rough.
The inside wasn't too bad, but then he saw the roof.
It's oh crap, this is gonna take months to fix.
Nate's room was mostly spared. His brother Jacob, however, lost a significant amount.
So we swept in here. The whole floor was covered in the glass. There was a bunch of insulation in here. You can see it there. They just patched it, but that was just a big open hole.
And they've got the pictures to prove it.
We're on the left side. The one on the right has a little bit of stuff, which is why I think our next door neighbors were able to stay.
But at the end of the day, Nate says he's not going to let this get him down.
And we are very, very lucky. This could have gone a lot worse.
In Norman, Dakota McDowell-Wapkichi, OU Nightly.
Nate was one of a few hundred students who had to find at least temporary living spaces after the tornadoes hit. Insurance experts say this is a great example of why you should have renter's insurance. It will cover your personal items if the storm hits your home and may help with other recovery-related expenses. In most cases, it's less than $30 a month.
By the time many students are sophomores or juniors, they're living off campus in apartment homes or townhomes. The freedom is great, but this year, many are saying the safety during storm season is not. OU Nightly's Kaylee Fan shows us why.
I like my apartment, but as far as like when tornadoes come through, I always feel like the wind could go and then it would all come toppling down.
This was the reality for many OU students during the EF2 tornado that touched down in Norman last month. Instead of staying put, those who live off campus are forced to find alternate safety measures. That includes going to shelters on campus or skipping town altogether.
Yeah, I just didn't feel safe in the line of the storm living on the second floor without a shelter. So I figured I would just get out of the way altogether. I was directing the severe weather coverage that we were doing. I was probably safer here at Gaylord than I would have been if I would have stayed at my apartment, because there are big, thick walls that were made to last, and then there's a storm shelter right across the street.
This leaves many students wondering why an area like Norman, which is right in Tornado Alley, may be lacking storm shelters at their apartments.
It's because it's a liability, because if someone goes in and then gets hurt, then we're up for a lawsuit basically, and we also can't turn anyone away since it is a public space. As much as I think we would like to have one, we can't.
Since it's typical for apartment complexes not to have storm shelters, the National Weather Service recommends that residents hide away from outside walls and windows, such as in a closet or in a bathroom. Although they understand the concern, students say they would feel much safer with a storm shelter closer to where they call home.
At least like a place to go that's like, even if it wasn't like, I don't know, an official storm shelter, like a basement or something.
Reporting in Norman, Kaylee Fan, OU Nightly.
In that story, you heard some students say they like to leave their apartment when a storm approaches. The National Weather Service says that's fine if you go early. Never try to drive during a tornado warning. Your best bet is to go to the lowest level, small interior rooms like Kaylee showed us, and stay away from windows.
Understanding the weather and the warnings during severe storm season is essential. OU South Campus is also home to the National Weather Service. Anyone can sign up for the Storm Spotter trainings they host for the general public each year.
Springtime in Oklahoma. Those words bring one thing to mind: tornadoes. When tornadoes strike, radar images only tell part of a story. It's observations that help the National Weather Service send out and confirm watches and warnings. Every year, the Norman office of the National Weather Service trains the general public to teach them about severe weather and how to become a certified storm spotter.
It's just an opportunity to get people together and get ready for spring. We've already had a taste of spring already a couple of times this year, and it's just a matter of time before we'll be dealing with the real spring storm.
A storm spotter is someone who sends in reports about what they're seeing outside during a weather event, and that information gets relayed back to meteorologists. But severe weather can be complicated.
You turn on the news and the newscaster starts talking to me what is absolute gibberish, words that I've never heard before in my life. So I was really excited to come here and learn about the wall cloud and about supercells and these various features that you hear about when there's a potential tornado coming.
Simplified, easy-to-follow presentations allow the everyday person to understand the basics behind the weather to help them during a storm.
Storm spotting is interesting, and you never know, I might be able to put it to use depending where I am.
Now that I live here, this stuff is now local, and so I want to be a little bit more educated and be able to just kind of, rather than watching stuff on a computer screen, be able to know what it is I'm looking at when I see things in the real world.
And when out in the real world, organizers want storm spotters to take away
a good reminder of the safety message about how important it is to be safe, whether it's from hail, wind, flooding, or tornadoes.
The training is open to the public every spring, and if you want to take part, you can register for a class online or in person each year.
Next on Tracking the Storm,
how those reports from storm spotters help the National Weather Service create an initial damage path and where to send its survey crews.
And why we don't only worry about tornadoes, see the powerful damage hail can do as our team coverage continues.
When tornadoes strike, meteorologists from OU's South Campus go out into the field to observe the damage. They estimate how strong the winds were in that tornado by looking at what type of damage occurred, and then they use that to estimate and to determine the rating of a tornado. Well, here is an example. So if those surveyors went out and saw roofs torn off, mobile homes destroyed, and even large tree snaps, they would estimate that that 3-second wind gust would be between 111 to 135 miles per hour. That would give that specific tornado an EF2 rating. Now, I was fortunate enough to go alongside the team of meteorologists to learn all about the storm damage surveys.
After a significant weather event like a tornado rips through a community, the National Weather Service sends out meteorologists to observe damage and collect data. Following the April 19th tornado outbreak, the survey team in Shawnee found damage that reminded them of a storm that occurred earlier in 2023.
So far on the north side of Shawnee, we have not seen as much residential structures damaged yet. There have been certainly a few, but not through the suburban neighborhoods that we saw on the east side of Norman back in February.
After that storm, the meteorologists used damage surveys to confirm radar signatures that showed a tornado on the ground,
and that's that spinning
just southeast of the University of Oklahoma.
In fact, just behind me here, we got good confirmation that this indeed was a tornado because some of the power poles, close behind me are blown from north to south, while a few hundred yards, further east, they're blown from south to north. So we can definitely see that there was a circulation, that there was strong rotation, strong enough to snap power poles.
The surveys and data collected are stored in a database and used to help future surveyors and other agencies like the Storm Prediction Center.
It's part of the research now in SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, is looking at the real-time guidance that we can provide National Weather Service meteorologists. In this case here, it looks like the most likely tornado strength is going to be in the EF2 to EF3 range. Tornado, climatology, hurricane, other severe winds. We're building a huge database, and we can do things with it. The National Weather Service is interested in improving warnings. We can see how the tornado strength changes. As the tornado goes down the line, we can actually see the width, we can see the spatial extent of various EF rating contours, so we can see the extent, and we can do all sorts of cool stuff with that.
One of those cool things the data can do is help engineers.
Let's say the engineers, they can use that same data to come up with better risk maps to document how often a particular specific building may get hit by a tornado of a certain magnitude, and then provide the guidance to help build a tornado-resistant building design.
Whether it's helping meteorologists or engineers, the National Weather Service damage surveys are essential to the future of severe weather forecasting.
Because we're documenting tornadoes, and then that comes back and helps provide more information and makes the warning system better.
The National Weather Service will continue to use the data they collect on these surveys to improve its warning system and better alert the public during severe weather.
When it comes to severe storms, Oklahomans fear tornadoes the most. But here in Norman, we've seen exactly how damaging a hailstorm can be. And with so many recent ones, we ask the question, are these events becoming more common? Hail the size of baseballs, some of Mother Nature's fury that Norman is all too familiar with. Just over 2 years ago, a massive hailstorm ravaged the South Metro, taking a beeline for Norman. According to Merlin Law Group, the damages totaled in excess of $1 billion, a new record for hailstorms in the city. This raises the question, are damaging hail events becoming more common? Well, in order to understand more about damaging hail, it's first important to understand how hail develops. So in an updraft, we do have updrafts coming in on thunderstorms here, and we do have strong updrafts, and that collides with water particles up in the atmosphere, and raindrops, they come into the atmosphere. That will create small hailstones that develop near the anvil of the top of the storm. And then as the storm moves on, those water droplets will kind of bobble. They will get bigger, then they will fall. They will get pushed back up by the updraft. That's whenever they will refreeze. That's called colliding with supercooled droplets in the cloud. Eventually, one of two things will happen. Either the hailstone will get big enough and fall, or the updraft strength will weaken, and as a result, hail will begin to fall out of the bottom of the clouds. Once that updraft weakens, then we will see hail fall out, and that's when we can get a damaging hailstorm. Now, in order to explore whether we've seen more damaging hail events, I caught up with an expert to answer that question.
You know, I would say as far as the volume of hail events that occur, we've stayed pretty steady for the most part. I mean, we have waves where we have more intense years, and then we have waves where we have less intense years.
Derek Klein is the founder and CEO of Hail Trace, a company headquartered in Oklahoma City that specializes in severe weather forecasting, analysis, and reporting. Derek is also a storm chaser for a local TV station and says his goal is to understand more about damaging hail.
You know, and we built a truck so we could specifically drive it into hailstorms. Anytime there's hail, I'll drive into it. I won't think twice about it.
We got a tour of that truck and a rundown of what it's capable of. Derek says he thinks research still has a long way to go, but has seen an uptick in damaging activity.
But we are having more damaging hailstorms, and part of that is just infrastructure. We're building a lot of stuff around the country, and there's a lot more things for it to hit.
Now, it's important not only to protect your property from hail, but also yourself. Large hail can cause injuries. Make sure not to go outside while it's falling. Well, coming up, I'll tell you why a century-old technology is crucial for forecasters when tracking severe weather.
And how to best keep track of your pet in the event that you are separated during a storm. Tracking the Storm continues next.
When severe weather threatens, it is critical that forecasters have an idea of the dynamics of the atmosphere in addition to the surface conditions. Sounds intense, but they measure it with something simple, a weather balloon. By using measurements from one of the nation's leading weather observation networks, the Oklahoma Mesonet, forecasters have a crystal clear idea of the real-time surface conditions every few minutes. However, severe weather happens in the upper atmosphere, and forecasters use a technology as old as the science of meteorology itself to understand what's happening overhead, the weather balloon.
So we launch these balloons twice a day at just under 100 locations around the United States. Actually, they're launched around the world at about the same time, twice each day. Around here, it's about 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. this time of year.
Rick Smith, the warning coordination meteorologist for the Norman National Weather Service Forecast Office, tells us how the balloon collects data as it ascends through the atmosphere.
Attached to the weather balloon is a small instrument package, and that instrument package has sensors to measure the temperature, the pressure, the humidity. Then we get information on the winds as it's going up via the GPS. And then that data comes back to us every second.
These balloons produce what's known as a skew T log P diagram, and while it may just look like a bunch of jumbled lines, this data is critical to understanding the thermodynamics and dynamics of the atmosphere on severe weather days.
Certainly in the springtime with severe weather, it's a very valuable tool because it gives us a three-dimensional picture that helps us forecast severe thunderstorms, for example.
Now, Rick says if you ever come across the pieces of a weather balloon after it's fallen back to Earth, he hopes you'll keep it as a souvenir.
Through every type of severe weather, we put your family first when it comes to safety. And we know your family includes your pets. That's why we want to share an important message about how you can keep them safe too. OU Nightly's Katani Gooch tells us what you need to do.
I've had dogs run away in the past, and it's really sad when you lose your pet.
For any pet owner, losing their furry friend can be a nightmare, especially after a hectic storm.
I don't know how to navigate a storm. I'm not going to go drive in a tornado if something happens to my dog. So having the microchip has definitely been a big relief as far as safety goes, because you never know what could happen.
Although tagged collars can come in handy, the possibility of them falling off makes them unreliable. Chipped is forever.
It will always be with that pet.
This is why the Moore Animal Shelter is having a $10 microchipping special for all Oklahomans.
So this is something we like to do to make sure all the pets in our city, but also other cities, are microchipped and can get home safely.
Something this tiny,
it's about the size of a grain of rice,
can be the difference between getting your pet home and tirelessly searching for them.
The dog's shoulder blades, and you just pop it in like that.
Not only are they looking out for the community, but for the shelter as well.
We always have an influx of animals after any kind of major storm. It is the best thing you could do for your pet to guarantee that you're going to get them home safely.
You can get your pet microchipped at your vet or contact the nearest animal shelter to find out about low-cost chipping events.
Thank you for watching OU Nightly's Tracking the Storm. I'm meteorologist Colton Williams.
And I'm meteorologist Catherine Laberta. Be sure to tune in to OU Nightly, home to the largest collegiate meteorologist team in the country.
We are proud to be your campus weather authority.
Good night.